Few names in Hollywood command the same mixture of respect, admiration, and quiet fear as Clint Eastwood. For more than 7 decades, he has carved out a career defined by discipline, grit, and an unwavering commitment to authenticity. But behind the stoic on-screen heroes and the steady directing style lies a man who has lived through countless personal and professional clashes. Not all of them made headlines, and not all of them happened under bright studio lights. In a career this long, Eastwood has crossed paths with actors who challenged him, frustrated him, or pushed him beyond his limits. Some disagreements were creative, some were personal, and some left wounds that never fully healed. After nearly a century in Hollywood, the truth has become clear. These are 6 actors Clint Eastwood will never forgive. Richard Burton. When Clint Eastwood and Richard Burton were paired together in Where Eagles Dare, Hollywood expected a monumental collaboration. 2 commanding presences, each with a reputation for intensity, discipline, and sheer screen power. What audiences didn't know was that behind the snow-covered battle scenes and flawless teamwork lay a partnership strained by deep personal differences. Burton arrived on set already wrestling with the pressures of fame and a lifelong struggle with alcohol. His brilliance was undeniable, but so were the unpredictable mood swings, late starts, and moments of emotional volatility. Crew members often recalled days when Burton's charisma lit up the set, and others when his exhaustion and frustration slowed filming to a crawl. Eastwood, who valued efficiency above all else, found himself quietly seething as production days stretched longer than necessary. He was a man who believed every minute mattered, who hated waste, and who showed up prepared long before the cameras rolled. Watching Burton drift in and out of focus, sometimes delivering perfection, other times barely holding it together, left Eastwood both impressed and exasperated. But the tension ran deeper than scheduling. Eastwood admired Burton's talent, yet he deeply resented the instability that surrounded him. He once remarked to a colleague that working with Burton felt like acting beside a volcano, beautiful, but always one breath away from an eruption. Though Where Eagles Dare became a classic, Eastwood quietly vowed never to repeat the experience. To this day, those close to him say Burton remains one of the few actors he respected, but could never forgive. Gene Hackman. When Clint Eastwood cast Gene Hackman in Unforgiven, Hollywood buzzed with excitement. 2 of the most commanding forces in American cinema, both Oscar winners, both perfectionists, both famously uncompromising, working side by side on a gritty Western, unlike anything the genre had seen before. But what sounded like a dream collaboration on paper quickly turned into a clash of philosophies that left a permanent mark on Eastwood. Hackman was a powerhouse. His approach to acting was explosive, emotional, and sometimes unpredictable. He pushed scenes to their edge, demanded multiple takes, and insisted on digging until he found the rawest version of the moment. Eastwood, in contrast, directed with calm minimalism. A few takes, little rehearsal, and a belief that authenticity came from instinct, not repetition. Their tension erupted during the filming of a particularly intense sequence. Hackman wanted more brutality and more emotional fury, arguing the scene needed a violent heartbeat. Eastwood disagreed, insisting that restraint would make the moment far more devastating. Witnesses say voices rose. Hackman paced with frustration, and Eastwood, usually unshakable, finally walked away to cool down. Despite the conflict, Unforgiven went on to win 4 Academy Awards, including 1 for Hackman. But behind the success, Eastwood carried a private bitterness. In interviews, he praised Hackman's talent, but avoided discussing the experience. Insiders say Eastwood believed Hackman didn't just challenge him. He disrespected the quiet, disciplined process he had built his career on. That wound never fully healed. John Milius. John Milius wasn't an actor, but his impact on Clint Eastwood's career was so forceful, so combustible, that leaving him off this list would ignore one of the most volatile creative clashes Eastwood ever endured. Milius was brilliant, a screenwriter with a mythic imagination, a director with a warrior's spirit, and a Hollywood rebel known for pushing boundaries until they snapped. But those same qualities made him one of the few men Eastwood openly admitted he could never work with again. Their conflict began during the development of the Dirty Harry sequels. Milius wanted to transform Harry Callahan into a larger-than-life crusader, louder, angrier, more brutal, and armed with monologues that sounded like battle cries. Eastwood despised the idea. To him, Harry wasn't a symbol. Harry was a man, quiet, steady, and terrifying precisely because he didn't need theatrics. Meetings soon turned into clashes. Milius would storm into conference rooms slamming pages on the table, insisting the franchise needed more blood, more force, more everything. Eastwood would sit in silence, his stare growing colder with every outburst. He hated chaos, and Milius brought it in waves. One producer recalled a moment when Eastwood said, barely above a whisper, "Harry doesn't shout, he doesn't brag, he does the job." Milius fired back that Eastwood was playing him too small. After that, the relationship broke. Though their collaboration helped cement Dirty Harry's legacy, Eastwood carried a private bitterness, believing Milius cared more about spectacle than truth. He never forgave him for trying to twist Harry Callahan into something he was never meant to be. Bruce Willis. The idea of Clint Eastwood and Bruce Willis teaming up once sounded like a sure thing. Two icons of tough guy cinema, each with a legendary career and a massive global following. But insiders say their one significant meeting didn't just kill a potential collaboration. It left Eastwood with a lasting resentment he never forgot. In the early 1990s, when Willis was riding high from the success of Die Hard and Moonlighting, producers pushed the idea of pairing him with Eastwood in a gritty action thriller. On paper, it looked perfect. In reality, their personalities couldn't have been further apart. Eastwood arrived at the private meeting prepared, measured, and focused. Exactly the way he approached every film he ever touched. Willis arrived casual, chatty, and armed with the sarcastic humor that had made him a star. What began as a script discussion quickly spiraled into a clash of tone and respect. According to insiders present, Willis interrupted Eastwood repeatedly, dismissing several of his ideas and joking that the project needed more wisecracks and fewer squints. He also teased Eastwood about his quiet intensity, calling it old-school macho stuff. Witnesses say Eastwood's expression hardened with each comment. He closed the script, stood up, and ended the meeting without raising his voice. The film was canceled within days. Years later, when asked about Bruce Willis, Eastwood offered a rare public jab. "Some people play tough, some people are tough." Those close to him say that was Clint's polite way of saying he would never work with Willis, and never forgive the disrespect he felt in that room. Kevin Costner. On the surface, Clint Eastwood and Kevin Costner seemed like a perfect pairing. Both men embodied the quiet strength of the American West. Both projected authority without raising their voices, and both were respected for their uncompromising dedication to storytelling. But behind the making of A Perfect World, a very different story unfolded, one marked by creative tension, mounting frustration, and a silent break that neither actor ever repaired. Eastwood approached the film, as he always did, with speed, instinct, and total trust in his performers. He believed the best moments were spontaneous, unforced, and captured in as few takes as possible. Costner, at the absolute peak of his fame, took the opposite approach. He dissected scenes, questioned motivations, and pushed for deeper emotional exploration in every beat of the script. That contrast ignited friction almost immediately. Insiders recall long pauses on set where Costner argued a scene needed more dialogue or emotional buildup, only for Eastwood to reject the idea with a curt shake of his head. Costner wanted complexity. Eastwood wanted simplicity. Costner wanted rehearsal. Eastwood wanted action. At one point, a heated disagreement over a key emotional scene stretched so long that crew members were sent on an unscheduled break. The final film is widely considered one of Costner's best performances. Layered, tortured, unforgettable. But when the cameras stopped rolling, the silence between the two men said everything. Costner reportedly hoped for another collaboration. Eastwood never responded. Those close to him say the experience left a quiet but permanent scar, one he never forgave. Sondra Locke. Of all the conflicts in Clint Eastwood's long career, none was more painful, more personal, or more enduring than his feud with Sondra Locke. This was not just a professional disagreement. It was a battle shaped by love, betrayal, power, and decades of emotional fallout. Their relationship began passionately in the late 1970s when Locke and Eastwood were creative partners and romantic companions. They starred together in multiple films, lived under the same roof, and, to many, seemed inseparable. But behind the scenes, the relationship was fragile and fraught with tension. Locke later claimed Eastwood grew increasingly controlling, while Eastwood insisted the relationship had simply run its course. When their romance ended in 1989, what followed became one of Hollywood's most infamous legal wars. Locke sued Eastwood twice, first for palimony, then for career interference, alleging that he sabotaged her directing opportunities by secretly orchestrating a fake studio development deal that led nowhere. Court documents, sealed testimonies, and insider accounts revealed bitter accusations on both sides. Though the lawsuits were eventually settled, the emotional damage was permanent. Friends close to Eastwood say he rarely spoke Locke's name again. Locke, for her part, documented her pain in a memoir that reignited public scrutiny. This was not a feud born from creative conflict. It was a wound carved from a life once shared and ultimately shattered. To this day, those who knew them say it was the one break Clint Eastwood never truly forgave. These 6 conflicts reveal more than simple grudges. They show us the kind of man Clint Eastwood has always been: disciplined, focused, and loyal to the craft. He forgives mistakes, but not disrespect. He tolerates differences of style, but not recklessness. And he accepts creative debates, as long as they don't threaten the integrity of the film or the safety of his team. But here's what's most remarkable. Despite these clashes, Eastwood's career continued to soar. Actors who found him intimidating also admired him. Directors who disagreed with him still praised his honesty. And audiences around the world remained loyal, decade after decade. Because in an industry filled with egos and illusions, Clint Eastwood never pretended to be anything other than what he was. At 95 years old, he remains a symbol of authenticity, a man who earned respect the hard way and never compromised his standards for anyone. Now we want to hear from you. Which of these 6 stories shocked you the most? And do you think Clint Eastwood was justified? Tell us in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next deep dive into Hollywood's greatest legends.